What is a ladybird deed and do I need one? Probably two questions that I get all the time. And so I'm going to try and clear it up for you today. What is it? How does it work? And might it be the right fit for you? So let's dive right in. What is a ladybird deed? The legal name for a ladybird deed is called an enhanced life estate deed. I know that sounds all fancy, but really what it's doing is it's a timeshare of your property. It's probably the best way that I've explained it to people is we all know what a timeshare is. It's where we take a condominium unit, for example, and we slice up ownership according to weeks. So one person owns it in week one person owns it in week two, another three, and so on and so forth. And for that week, I am the true owner of that property. But when it comes to week two, I no longer own it. Somebody else owns it for that week. This is what a life estate deed or a ladybird deed is doing. It's actually slicing up the ownership of your property, not according to weeks on a calendar, but the time frame that we're using is somebody's lifetime while they're alive. That's the measurement of time that we're using in a life estate deed or a ladybird deed. So why do we use it? Why do we even create these? Well, truthfully, they are used pretty much for avoiding probate. Probate is caused when I die and title to my house, for example, is stuck in my dead name, and now somebody has to go to court and go through a long, expensive probate process. What a ladybird deed is doing is while I'm still alive, I'm going to go ahead and sign a deed and divide up my property according to time between me and other people, except instead of doing it by weeks, I'm going to do it by another measurement of time, for example, my lifetime. So let's say, for example, I want to leave my house to my two kids after I'm dead, of course. So I would sign a deed today called a life estate deed or a ladybird deed. I'll talk about the difference in a second, but what I would do is I'm going to sign and I'm going to give my two kids all the ownership to it, but only once the expiration of time expires, my week, so to speak, but my week is my lifetime. So I own it for the rest of my life. They are the rightful owners of it the moment I pass away. So it keeps it from having to go through any court or probate process because I only own it for the rest of my life. And when I die, they're the automatic owners and they take over just like when the week ends of my timeshare. Once week one is over, I no longer own it. If I slice up time according to a lifetime and I no longer own it because I'm dead, now they own it. Same exact concept. So why would I ever use this? Well, like I said earlier, it's typically to avoid probate. So I go ahead and give a deed to my kids. I then die, they automatically own it because I've already given them those rights, their timeshare period, so to speak, before I died. I can't do it after I die. This doesn't work. This is something that you set up while you're still alive. Why would I not do this? Some people might ask. And it usually has to do with future control or uncertainty. So let's say, for example, I've given somebody the rights to it these weeks or this time frame after I'm dead. And what if I change my mind later and I don't want them to have it anymore after I'm dead? Well, that's not so easy. I've already given them these weeks. I can't, this time. I can't just turn around and take it back. So I need them to give it back to me. What if somebody dies? Well, for example, I gave it to my two children and one of them passed away before I do, and I would rather my whole house go to my surviving child, not my son or daughter-in-law. Well, once I've given them their rights, they own it. And if they die, those rights to that property after I'm dead continue on and go wherever their will or their trust is. So unless everything goes according to plan, things can go the wrong direction, so to speak. So the times when I don't use ladybird deeds is when we don't want to kind of expose our house or whatever the asset is to that uncertainty of where's it going to end up and what if I change my mind? What if I want to sell it? What if I want to refinance it? This is where the ladybird or enhanced portion of a life estate comes in. So there is a way to, when we create and chop up this deed in measurement of time, to not only keep the rights to it for the rest of my life, but I'm also going to keep the right to sell it to a third party or to take out a mortgage against it. And I'm going to say directly in the deed that I've given it to the remainder individuals that I'm going to keep the right to sell it to somebody else or to refinance it without getting your signature. Well, let me tell you firsthand, good luck on that with the title companies and the banks, because many times I have done a ladybird deed, and when we go to sell it to a third party, the title company that has to insure the title to the buyer says, I don't care what that deed says, I want that child or whoever to sign on that deed as well. Many banks will say the same thing. I'm not loaning the money to you unless everybody that's on that interest signs it, including the people that you've given that life estate deed to. So although that is the selling point for the Ladybird deed, and that you do not need to get the signature of the whoever you've given it to in order to sell it or refinance it, if you think that might be a concern, I would not recommend doing a Ladybird deed. Another kind of drawback in the event you've given your rights after you're dead, and let's say it's to a child and that child gets divorced or gets sued, that's something they own that potentially could be exposed to creditors of theirs because you've already given it to them, and you can't just snatch it back. And if they've got a judgment against them, it may have already attached to that interest before you could even give it back. So the control thing is really the drawback to the Ladybird deed or using an enhanced life estate deed. So it's great at avoiding probate, making things very easy and simple. However, when things get off kilter and don't go according to plan, it can go pretty bad and you can kind of lose control. So when do I use it in my practice? Typically, I will use it in a very small scenario, and that might be when I have a client who is older in years, for example, and maybe they just have one child. There's no mortgage. They've owned the house forever. Very responsible child. So very low chance that the child is going to pass away before them. If they only have one child, low chance they're going to change their mind and not want things to go to that one child. So when the kind of the likelihood of those things go way down, then a Ladybird deed can in fact be a useful tool in the toolbox. So hopefully that's helpful. That's my quick definition of my timeshare Ladybird deed analogy, and hopefully you find it useful.